welcome back. So this week I'm talking about traveling on a budget. I would say that I travel more than the average person, and I would say that I've been through a lot of different travel experiences. I've been 3 hours early at the airport, I've slept over at an airport, but I've also arrived at the airport while my flight was boarding. I've been delayed days, I've been delayed minutes, I've had flights that board early, I've even had my flights canceled a day before Christmas, and I was coming home to see my family. I've stayed everywhere from 5-star hotels to hostels. I've taken probably every mode of transportation you can think of: tubes, buses, bikes, planes, trains, boats, Ubers, taxis, you name it. I've done it. I've actually been to 37 countries now, over 5 different continents, not including Antarctica or Australia, which I plan to come see you Aussie soon. I've traveled with thousands of dollars. I've traveled with $5 left in my pocket, and through all of this I've learned what costs money and what you can save money on. I've learned how to budget properly. In every place there are some things that run super similarly, and there are hacks to all of these places. The first thing is flights. That's going to be your most expensive part of the trip, although once you get from North America to Europe or to anywhere else, flights within that region are typically pretty cheap, but you do have to know what to look for. So I typically use Skyscanner or Google Flights to find cheap flights. But one thing I have to warn you about when you're flying is your baggage size and the check-in times. So there are a couple of companies like Ryanair and Wizz Air who charge literally nothing to fly, but they try to get you in little other ways, and one of those really common ways is to charge you for your bags. So if you have any bag that's over 8 kilograms, definitely select to pay the 25 euros or however much it is to get a checked bag instead of trying to carry that on with you. Even though it's a small bag, like a carry-on size, it won't matter. If it's over 8 kilograms, then they're gonna charge you 60 euros. Not only that, so you just waited in your check-in line to check your bags. You have to then go to another line, pay the price, and then wait in that line again. It could probably delay you a little while, so definitely account for that. Just pay the 25 euros, get it over with. It's not worth it. Another thing is the early check-in. Some flights will try and get you with the check-in fee. So some of them you actually have to print the boarding pass off, and if you don't print it, they charge you 60 euros just to print the dang boarding pass. So I would just print them all, honestly. If you're traveling, just print them all. It's not worth it. And also be wary of the time restraint that it takes to check in. Some flights are 2 hours, some are 3, and some you cannot check in at the airport. So really pay attention to flight regulations and you'll be fine. But you can also travel in other ways. So you can travel by train, and you can travel by boat or ferry. You can literally rent a car. So really it's up to you what you're willing to spend. People think that trains are often less expensive, and sometimes that's true, especially if you're traveling within a country. But country to country, I didn't find that to be the case. But in my opinion, I was only saving about $100 using the train, but I was losing 10 hours in this new city. So I didn't think that was worth it, but if that's something that you want to save money on, then it's totally an option. One thing I would recommend when traveling is to avoid taxis in a foreign country. I'm not saying this happens all the time, but it happens often enough to just avoid it. People get ripped off or charged extra, or the meter doesn't work. Better option is to try and use Uber. It's cheaper and it's safer. Or you could also use the public transport system. Pretty much in every city that I've ever been to works the exact same way. It's also a good way to see the city and to spend a lot less because it's super cheap. I recommend doing a 1-day day trip whenever you stay somewhere, because not only is that a good way to get out of the city and see the countryside, but you also get to these places that are out of the way for a very cheap price. You pay $150 to go visit 5 different little spots that are out of the way. I would recommend that, but again, that's an extra expense that you would have to spend. However, like I said, it's probably the cheapest and most affordable way to do it. So the second thing that I think you can save money on while traveling is the places that you pick to stay. So for me, I use Hostel World, and I typically book hostels. I love Hostel World because it organizes the hostels based on their rating. One thing you want to do when you're using Hostel World is obviously check the rating, check for cleanliness, and check the comments that the guests have left behind. But another thing that people often miss is the location. Sometimes I've wanted to be in the city center and I've been a good 30 minutes away from it, and that costs more money because you need to Uber or you need to take the train to get to the city center where you wanted to be originally. Another good thing that people might not think about, or maybe you do, is Airbnb. Airbnb seems to be super cheap in Europe. It's awesome because it's private. Those are probably your best two options. But in my opinion, hostels are just way better because you can meet so many more people in a hostel environment than you can in an Airbnb. And all those people in a hostel are doing the same thing as you. They're traveling, they're trying to get these new experiences and make memories. Some of them are even traveling alone, so you might make really good friends there, and I know I have. Hostels also have private rooms if you are not into the dorms. Another good way to save money on places to stay is to travel with friends. So if you're sharing an Airbnb with 5 people or 4 people or 3 people, however many people, then that's also going to save you money because you get to split the price with them. I guess whatever you're interested in doing or however you want your experiences to be. In almost every single European city I've been, there's been a free walking tour. If you ask whoever you're staying with about the free walking tour, they'll tell you there's a meeting spot and a time, and you meet there, and a local or somebody who's very familiar with the city will take you around and explain the cool spots to be, the artistic things like the museums and all that great stuff. It's also like a good history lesson. That's free. But if you don't want to do the free walking tour, you can always ask a local what there is to do around. They'll typically tell you the places that are like very local and cultured. There are definitely reasons not to go to the touristy spots. One being usually very expensive. I mean, some people really want to do the touristy stuff and some people really want to get into the culture, so it's really, again, up to you and what your travel desires are. A couple other things that are just free in general: churches, cathedrals, beaches, national parks, waterfalls. Heck, looking at the Eiffel Tower right there is free. Some museums are only by donation. They either have great student prices or are typically pretty cheap. All these awesome things are typically free to visit. Something that not a lot of people know is that there's free Wi-Fi everywhere. Even some cities have whole city Wi-Fi. If you're ever lost or looking for something to do while you're out and about, then literally all you have to do is find somewhere with free Wi-Fi. It's a good way to save your data if you ever are in trouble. I know some people use Skyroam, which I'm pretty sure you have to pay for that. I just say, get rid of that idea and just go with the free Wi-Fi. The whole point of this is that it's like a big misconception that you need to have a lot of money to travel. There's definitely an easy way to travel without spending any money at all. But in my opinion, the only thing you really need money for is the flight across the ocean and the flight back. Everything else in between, you can figure out pretty cheaply. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below. And you can also subscribe if you'd like. Next week, I'll be talking about some awesome travel tips. I'll see you guys then.